Welcome back to Iron Sports. To the courts we go now, where Tennis Jamaica is experiencing, we'll be holding their annual general elections in April, this at the Jamaica Olympic Association headquarters. Aswad Morgan, he has been the president of the association since December 2017 and has been seemingly making some strides, including a proposal which included a $100 million National Tennis Center. However, noted businessman John Azar says, the sport is not where it needs to be and changes are needed, including a new president. Well, we've heard just before we came on air that Aswad Morgan, he has withdrawn from the race for the presidency. He will not be seeking re-election. So we want to welcome on set with us John Azar, presidential candidate for Tennis Jamaica. John, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
First time on Iron Sports?
Yes, it is.
Good. All right. The news just coming in pretty much that Aswad Morgan, the incumbent, he will not be seeking re-election. Were you aware of this and any at all? And what is your own reaction to this?
My reaction sound a little bit strange. I'm not happy with it. I think that vibrant democratic process is always good once it's free and fair. But there had been talk about it the past couple of days. I mean, my personal opinion, despite what I've glanced at the statement just issued, is with the cutoff of last week, Friday, I think that he, along with many of the incumbent candidates, have probably had a chance. Take a look at that list of paid-up members, felt out where their support lay, and maybe has made some decisions along those lines. So I wouldn't say I'm altogether surprised, but it may have been something that I suspected could have been on the cards.
All right, this is your second go at running for the presidency. Back in 2015, you had put your hand up, and there was a rift then. The elections then was cancelled and then brought back a year later. But why did you decide to once again put your name in the hat for the presidency?
All right. As someone who's very passionate about tennis, I'm not comfortable with the direction that the sport is going and has been going for a little while now. So even prior to running or considering to run, I reached out to Aswad. He was a good friend of mine for many, many years, and made that known to him. And, we had a little slight difference in terms of, I guess, he felt the sport is going where it should be. And I, along with, in my mind, the vast majority of the tennis-playing public agree that a lot more needs to be done. So my stepping forward is solely in an effort to change the direction of the sport, and I've made it very clear. This is not about me.
And do you feel you have the support, the backing of crucial members?
Well, I certainly do, but more so, the members of Tennis Jamaica is very, very small in comparison to the tennis-playing public, and that's part of the problem.
Right.
But I think I have the support of both. But from my perspective, it's not about me, never has been, and I don't think there's any one man or one woman who can save the direction the sport of tennis is going. So you may have heard last week, I called a meeting with various stakeholders in the sport to include Aswad and members of his team, very openly, discuss the issues that existed to try and find what I felt and others was a common way forward. And one of the main reasons for that meeting was to encourage other persons who are on the sidelines. It's very comfortable to sit on the sidelines and criticize.
Right.
I guess you could say in the pavilion, to use a cricket analogy, is the best place to be, saying what should be done out on the pitch. So I'm very happy to hear, while the list of nominated candidates has not been circulated, which is in itself another issue, from people who have called me and told me they've been nominated, I'm delighted.
Yeah. How did that meeting go, though?
Very well. Very, very amicable. I mean, Aswad, to his credit, was very, I'd say, acknowledging of a lot of the issues that were discussed and accepting of them, and agreed that, I don't want to speak for him, certainly, but I took from that he agreed with that more needs to be done. But what was most impressive to me was we got together 60 members of the tennis community, and we had a fantastic meeting, very amicable.
But since it was amicable,
the tone was good.
And the tone was good, and everything seemed to have gone all right. A week later, almost, Aswad has decided not to run, and he has stated in his letter, he put out a statement that he wants to avoid any kind of divisiveness, as maybe was the case in 2015. So does this surprise you in any way?
Well, he
that,
said
that he's pointed to the divisiveness.
He said slightly more than that. He said slightly more than that. And I glanced at his statement literally as I was coming into studio.
Right.
But he said to avoid a divisive election, if I'm
Right.
quoting him correctly.
Right.
And I don't have any idea what he's talking about. Unless there's any divisiveness within his current administration internally,
Right.
I would say that the past 2 or 3 weeks, with a buzz that's around tennis and the tennis community,
Right.
they've been more unified than I've seen it for many years. I don't know what he's really talking about, to be honest with you. I have no idea what devices. And I will say, if I was a candidate running, whether it be somebody challenging an incumbent or somebody an incumbent slate running, I would find his statement to be in itself divisive, and I'd find his statement to be insulting, because what it suggests is that by definition, a democratic challenge has to be divisive, and I don't see that at all. Anybody who's been following my public comments since I announced I was considering, and people privately I've been speaking to, have heard me singing one tune, which I believe. There's no fight. The only fight I want to fight is for the game of tennis. I'm not fighting anyone else. So what divisiveness he is seeing, whether it's real or perceived it's real, it's probably on the inside of his administration. And otherwise, I suspect there's other reasons why he has dropped out.
Yeah, but you want to share those reasons with us? I mean, this is Iron Sports, you know, we would like to reveal these things and put everything on the table.
I'm not going to tell you definitively why I know. If you were to say, no, what do I suspect?
Yeah, what do you suspect?
Maybe wrong, I may be wrong.
What do you suspect?
I think that the way that the rules of this election have been stated, because one of the problems with the organization, in my view, is you have rules that don't change, but the interpretation of that same rule changes from day to day and year to year. And I have a difficulty with that. It's one of the things that, God's willing, if I'm elected, I would change. But that's a separate thing. The cutoff date for paid-up membership was last week, Friday. And I suspect that persons in the organization have had a chance to review that list. No one else has. Again, a slight lack of transparency in my personal view. And you know, you look at a list of paid-up members and you are normally able to judge where your support or lack thereof stands. Because what I can say is, up until that cutoff day, Asa and I were speaking almost daily, he knew a challenge was coming because I told him, and he was extremely excited about participating in an election process. So to now say it's because of not wanting a divisive election, there's absolutely no divisiveness, none whatsoever.
Are you aware then, with Aswad not seeking re-election, are you aware of any other candidate?
Well, Jermaine, that's a slight difficulty I have again, because to me and persons I've spoken to, and let me be very clear, I'm not here to point fingers.
Right.
I'm not here to throw stones. That's not what I'm here doing. Tennis needs unity. But in my way, if you don't, and I say this to my kids in my business, if you don't accept a problem exists, you'll never correct it. So I don't really know who the candidates are. While the nominations close on Monday, I had personally thought that list was made available immediately. I've reached out to General Secretary myself, and in the notice from Tennis Jamaica, they've stated a list of candidates will be circulated on the 24th, or next week, Tuesday. So the point to me is, why 8 days between the nominations closing and the nominations being circulated? My way of thinking should have been circulated within the hour. That's transparency and that's fairness.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. In terms of what you now are seeking to do, as we look to wrap up once you are elected, what would be what would be the immediate objective or objectives?
The immediate
that you have in
objective, which I
place?
think has already started, is unifying various factions in the sport to come together to buy into a philosophy that we can put past differences aside, we can put past hurts aside, and if I can get 15 tennis-loving, passionate persons to put themselves forward to be elected onto a board of Tennis Jamaica, to themselves engage with many others who are not on the board to grow the sport and move it forward, we'll move mountains.
You had mentioned to me off air as well, before you came on, about bringing international tennis back to Jamaica. What level of international tennis
it's been far too long. You know, I remember my uncle Eddie Smith is a former national champion. I used to go to the arena to watch Rothman's Cup, and you had world-class players here. I think Bjorn Borg played there, Guillermo Vilas played there, our Richard Russell played there. And you know, if you look in the past, long back, there's really been no events like that. Why? I don't think it needs to be that way. And one thing I will mention to you, although I have no slate of candidates by choice running with me, and I haven't seen the nominations, based on who has reached out and they're putting themselves forward, I'm hopeful that when a new board is elected, you and others are going to be extremely, almost excited to say, wow, look at the quality of personnel who have come out to serve on a board. And this is not taking anything away from the current board. Yeah. I'm just saying I hope we have passionate people to drive that process.
Speaking of the current board, as a matter of fact, is there any aspect of the work that the current administration has done that you would look to keep in place?
Slightly difficult because I don't know if there's, I don't know personally of everything they're doing. I mean, the past 2 weeks I have read of some fantastic plans to be done. But from my perspective, certainly, if I were to be elected and there's certain policies or programs in place that are positive around tennis, we would embrace it and we'd continue to grow on it. So, I mean, I'd have to look at it, see what's in place, but I certainly, my intention would be anything that's good for tennis is what I would be fighting for. I'm fighting no other fight. I'm only want to fight for the game of tennis.
John Azar, thank you so very much for joining us here on Iron Sports, and we'll definitely be following your progress all the way up to the elections and beyond.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So that was John Azar, presidential candidate for Tennis Jamaica. Right then, so we have some events. Well, we take a break, in fact, and we come back, and when we come back, we're going to be discussing athletics.